Hello, my bookish babes and besties. Welcome back to Book Blabs. I'm Nat, and I love to blab all things books. Um, it is currently Thursday, April 3rd, I want to say. It's been a hot minute since I've last posted or even been active with books because life took a turn, things went really unexpected for me, but I'm dealing with them. I have a great support system. So, love my family, love my friends. We are getting through it. But if I sound sick or if I look sick, here's a gold star because I am sick. I'm very sick. I have been off of work all week because I've been sick. But I am going to talk about my 2025 reading wrap up quarter one. So these are all of the books that I've read in the first 3 months of 2025 or the first quarter. So January, February, and March. Since we're in the beginning of April, I decided I'm just going to wrap up all 3 of those months and then we'll just do quarterly wrap ups for this year.
Hi, Future Nat coming in with a quick disclaimer. I know that this video is posting at the end of April, but let me just say better late than never. Okay? Better late than never. Got it. Okay? All right, love you guys.
So, in these past 3 months, I have read 29 books, which is 24% of my reading goal of 120 books. Sadly, because of life's circumstances, I am 2 books behind my reading goal pace, but hopefully I will be able to catch up when I'm feeling better, literally and mentally. My average rating for these 29 books was a 3.86, which to me feels shockingly low because normally I'm really easy to please. But life's been hard this past couple 5-6 weeks, so maybe I've been a little bit more of a tough grader. So this is going to be my breakdown of books I read. So roughly I read 14 romance books, 5 fantasy/romantasy books, 6 mystery thrillers, 1 science fiction, 2 literary fics or lit fics, and 1 nonfiction. All right, so let's just go ahead and dive in. All right, and let's talk about all the books that I have read. So let's dive into January. All right, in January, I read 13 books. I have a little cheat sheet right here, so if you see me look down, that is why. So, my first book is Expiration Dates by Rebecca Searle. I gave this book 5 stars. I really thought this book was beautifully written. So essentially, this woman, when she starts talking to a man or starts dating a man, she receives a slip of paper, and on that slip of paper has an expiration date for their relationship. So if she bumps into a man at the bar, 5 minutes later, she will find a slip of paper tucked in somewhere and it'll say 1 night or 2 weeks or 3 months or whatever. And she knows how long that particular relationship will last her. Well, I think her name's Daphne. It's been a while since I've read it. She meets a man and her slip of paper is blank. There is no expiration date. And so she's trying to figure out how to navigate that and what that means for her. So I think it's beautiful. It's about life. It's about fear of the unknown. It's about friendships. It's about growing up. It's about being vulnerable and being communicative and honest. And I gave it 5 stars because I really thought it was very well written. And it was a great way to start off my reading year. The second book I read was The Christmas Guest by Peter Swanson. I gave this one 3 stars. Um, I do not like novellas very much just because they're so short. I feel like we don't really get to like dive into the characterization that I'm looking to have because I really like to see growth or development as a character, and I feel like it's too quickly developed or too quickly, like, because you only get so many pages. So I think it's more of a prejudice against the genre or the form of book than the actual book itself, because this was a murder story, a murder mystery around Christmas that um was told through diary entries, and I found that really interesting because it gave us like distance, because the prologue starts with a woman taking down a diary and then opening it, and now we get taken back in time to the diary events of what has happened. And it's really cool because it's like a story within a story, like Frankenstein vibes, but it's diary entries, so it's really cool. However, it was very short, so I was kind of like, meh. I wish for more development. I wanted more characterization. I wanted to know the characters' thoughts more. I wanted to get to know them, but I feel like they kind of like caricatures, like blank sketches, because we had so many limited page amount with them. Sorry if you hear me sniffling, it's because I'm sick. My third book was Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. I gave this one 4 stars. Um, this book it's YA, but it's way darker than I thought it was going to be, and it also kind of made me feel crazy. So it takes place at a private school that's kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it's surrounded by like dense woods and forest. And the main character, Andrew, we know that he has some mental issues, if I guess. I don't know how to really say it. Um, I don't remember if he's on medication, but he recently has been on watch because he punched a mirror and he's not very mentally sound at the moment. So I know that we have a unreliable narrator, and as the story progresses, things get more jumbled and more confusing, and you don't know what's real, you don't know what's going on, and it's like kind of scary and it's kind of like thrilling, and you don't know who to trust. And it was really good. It was really dark, but I was entertained. However, I don't know why, but I couldn't put my finger on it. It just did not give 5-star vibes. So I gave it 4 stars. Still a really good book. The next 2 books I read were books 1 and 2 of the Legacy of Gods series. So I read God of Malice and God of Pain by Rena Kent. Now these are spicy dark romances. They're spicy, very spicy. I gave the first one 4 stars and I gave the second one 3 stars. They were darker than I thought they were going to be. Very dominating, very controlling men. Um, but if you're looking to like turn your brain off and just have some like dark romance, these books will get you out of a slump. I can tell you that. They're very easy to read if you don't have a lot of trigger warnings. Like, beware. You know what I'm saying? Like, read your trigger warnings because these books are heavy. But if those trigger warnings don't bother you, then for me, it was a really easy read because I was like, oh, okay. La 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 la. So yeah, I read those back to back. And um yeah, God of Pain, the second book, I gave 3 stars because I found it a little bit more unrealistic than the first book, because I know they're still in college and I know their families have a lot of money, but like with the whole plot thing and the drama of it all, I was kind of just like, this is too much. This is too dramatic. This is too unrealistic. It was kind of giving me the ick. And I think that's why I did not continue the series, because there are a bunch of books in that series. But maybe down the line I will continue, but at the moment it's on pause. The next book I read was The Witch Collector by Charissa Weeks. I gave this one 4 stars. I thought this was a really fun book. I really liked this one. So this is kind of like an enemies to lovers. So in this town of witches, there is the witch collector, and I don't know if it's every year or what the timeline is. The witch collector comes to collect one of the witches, and it's considered a high honor because they get collected and they go to the palace or the castle to serve the king because there's this um enemy that the king is fighting, and he needs like witches magic to support him and create solutions. So ultimately, our main character, her sister gets taken when she's little, and she hates the witch collector for the rest of her life as she's growing up because her father was already dead, and so it was just her mom and her, and she's pissed that her family got broken up and how it's supposed to be some honor. So time passes, and now the witch collector has come for our main character. And so they're traveling together. So it's like one horse, or might be 2 horses, I don't know. But they're forced to spend a lot of time together because the enemy is closing in. And so it's tense. There's action, there's saving, there's learning, there's magic. It's really good. Honestly, I really liked it. It's part of a trilogy, I think, or a series, so I might read the next one. Um, but yeah, I had fun with that one. If I didn't already say it, I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read was Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I gave this one 4 stars, simply because I could not give it 5 stars. Even though I got so heated about the ending of this book, I was so angry at how this book ended. I still can't give it 5 stars. And I know it's a good book because I'm so heated about it and because I want to talk about it, but I refuse. I will die on the hill where I cannot give this book a 5 star because this relationship is so toxic. I don't even know how you can call the relationship between BJ and Magnolia at all like a love story or a romance. I know it's supposed to be like Gossip Girl in England or the UK, but oh my god, they were so toxic. They would like purposely hurt one another. And it's just so infuriating, but also like I couldn't stop. It's like a car accident. You want to look away, but like you're also intrigued and want to watch how it's going to happen. And so I don't know. Maybe that speaks a lot about me because I just like was so invested in the drama. But I don't know. I don't know. I gave that one 4 stars. Do with that what you will. Okay. Read it. Don't read it. Just know that it is beep toxic. Okay. The next book I read was The Ministry of Time by Callian Bradley. Callian. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, and I apologize. But I gave this one 3 stars. And while it was really enjoyable, I think it had a lot of potential. This was the author's debut book, which makes it incredibly impressive because I think it is a very well written book. However, I just think she was trying to do a little bit too much in this one book. So, in this book, we have the Ministry of Time, which takes place in like I want to say either present or future, like London or the England, and their job is to go into the past and rescue people who were going to die anyway and bring them into the present and basically study them and see if they can be transitioned or accustomed to present day England. And so they go back and from various time periods, like some farther back, some nearer, and they rescue these people. And our main character gets assigned to a general. And so they spend a lot of time together because she's like his bridge. The whole purpose of her job is to make sure that he gets acclimated well. If he has any questions, she's going to answer them. She's going to make sure he doesn't wig out. She's doing psychological things on, like, tests on him to make sure that he's, like, not losing it mentally, and just making sure he's settling in well, kind of like acting like a mediator, because everything will be so much of a shock to them. There were a lot of political things introduced in this book. So there was like climate change and racism and more. And I honestly read it a long time ago, so I can't really remember all the different things. But I remember that they didn't dive as deep as I wanted them to. You know what I'm saying? So instead of like really getting critical and taking a stance and being, because like I know science fiction is so good at that, is like making you think about these political real life things, because that's what it is. It's like the future, or um it's like reflecting on the consequences of man's actions and everything like that. But because she was trying to include so much, it was more of like a gloss over rather than like a diving in, sinking your teeth into something. And it just it it kind of disappointed me, but it was still very well written, still very entertaining. So I still think you guys should read it. So if you're looking for sci-fi, please read it. The next book I read was Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry. I gave this book 5 stars. And let me tell you, this book was really difficult to read. It'll kind of give you a stomach ache and a headache and break your heart at the same time, because it's written. So Lucinda Berry, I'm pretty sure she's like a child psychologist or a psychologist. So it's written very scientifically and written very like politely. But this book is told from the point of view of a mother, and her son is a teenage like pedophile. So he was convicted and found guilty of at least 2 or 3 counts of um, touching like little girls, like 6-year-old girls in the pool. And so this book is her point of view of her son. And it's so difficult because like you want to hate the son and you want to hate the mom, and you want to like, it's like the son gets bullied and the son gets beat up and the son gets tormented and their lives are not the same. And it's like you want to feel bad for them because they're people, but at the same time, like you're like, what he did was not okay. And that's why it's so heartbreaking, is because a mother's love is so pure that she's trying to like rationalize what he did, and she still loves him. And it's so difficult, and it's really well written. It's very like politely written. There's nothing too graphic or too crazy or anything like super. I don't know how to describe it. But this book is really, really, it's hard to read, but I think it's worth the read, if that makes sense. The next book I read was called The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen. And this book I also rated 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. So this book is about the Olympian gods, and they each pick a champion. And usually Hades does not pick a champion. But they all each pick one champion to fight in a game called the Crucible, where there's a bunch of challenges, and whoever wins, whatever champion wins, that god wins. And I forget what the god wins, but it's like something really awesome and something powerful. And it happens every year. So there is a human woman, and when she was a baby, she was cursed by Zeus to be unlovable. So she's pissed at Zeus, and so she's trying to throw rocks at like his, I forget what it's called, but like his place of worship, his temple, or whatever you want to call it. And she runs into Hades there, and he's like, kind of like you, like your fire. So he picks her to be his champion. And all the gods are enraged that Hades is now participating. And our human woman, I forget her name, she's like, "What am I doing here? Am I just some kind of pawn to you?" So, but this is like, it has romance, it has action, it has adventure, it's fast paced, it's fun. You get to meet different gods, you get to meet, it's so cool. I really liked it. Very fast paced, very, it, it gets you going, like you, once you start, the pages are going to keep turning and you're not going to want to put it down. The next book I read is also by Lucinda Berry. It's An Appetite for Innocence. And I gave this one a 4 star. I did not like it as much as Saving Noah, but it was still just as hard to read. So this book is about two survivors um, who get away from a serial kidnapper and serial rapist and serial killer, kind of. So this man has a tendency to kidnap, rape, and then murder girls. And he's been doing it for a long time. And eventually, two of them are able to get away, get escape, and get out. So, this book is about kind of what happens. It's their story of like what goes on when they were there, but it also focuses on what goes on afterwards because the trauma doesn't just stop once you get out or get away. Um, it still continues, the fear, the paranoia, the healing process is way harder than one would think. And because it's written by a psychologist or a child psychologist, I don't remember which one she is. Um, it's very well written, very scientific. Now, wait a damn minute. Editing Natalie just realized that sick Natalie said scientifical. Scientifical, honey, that's not a word. You were an English major. Do better. Very logical. And yeah, it's horrific. But at the same time, it's very captivating and very enlightening. So yeah, if you want to stomach that, be my guest. I liked it, so you might like it too. Just be careful going in. The next book I read, ooh, The Right Move by Liz Tomford. 5 stars. 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 Ryan Shea. So, if you read the first book, I can't remember what it's called. It's about Stevie. Stevie's the main character, female main character. So her twin brother is Ryan Shea. And so this book is about him. And he's a basketball player. He is a little bit shy, a little bit protective. And so it's about Stevie's best friend, Indy, that's her name, Indy, and Ryan Shea, her twin brother. And so Indy just got out of like a 6-year relationship. She thought she was going to marry the guy and then found out that he was cheating on her. So she's heartbroken, doesn't know where to go. So Stevie convinces her brother Ryan to let Indy stay with him so she can save some money to get her own place. And let's just say, chemistry and sparks. Ryan Shea is literally one of my favorite book boyfriends. Like, Ryan Shea. Oh, that man that he is, Ryan Shea. Yes. Ryan Shea. Yeah. Love me some Ryan Shea. So please read it. The last book I read in January was Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This is the only nonfiction I've read in the past 3 months. And I rated it 3 stars because I thought it was like very witty, very tongue in cheek, very well written. I just didn't relate to it. So I feel like young Natalie, when I was in like middle school and high school, would have really liked hearing some of the things she had to say and some of the advice. And then the other half of it is about like accepting being in your 30s and like saying goodbye to your 20s. But I'm 23, so I'm very much still in my 20s. And so I feel like I just didn't relate to it that much. It was also about like all of her relationships. And I've been in the same relationship for the past 6 years. Shout out to Jaden. Um, so it's just like some of the things she was saying didn't really like hit as hard with me, but it's like I still think it gave like women empowerment and women supporting women and like just advice that I think every woman should just have in her toolbox of knowledge. So that's why I think it's still worth reading. Just it wasn't really like a life-changing read for me. Before we move on to February, I'm going to get a water break because I'm sick and I'm talking a lot. um I tried to give you some ASMR and I ended up spilling all over myself. Well, that was embarrassing. In February, I read 9 books. This is when my life started falling apart, so you can see that it's not as many as January. And March is even less. All right? All right. So let's go through these books. The first book I read in February was The Butcher and the Wren by Elena Urquhart. And I rated this book 3 stars. It is a book, it's like a mystery book about a serial killer. And it's cool because it's told from both POV of the serial killer and the detective. Or I guess she's not really a detective. She is, what is she called? Like a coroner almost, she's like the medical examiner. She's the one who like determines the cause of death and she looks at the lividity of the body. I think a medical examiner is what it's called. Yeah. Anyways, so that's why it's called The Butcher and the Wren, because her name is Wren. I forgot her last name. But it's told from both their point of views, and it's really cool to watch them like happening side by side. So it's like the killing with the detectiving and back and forth. There's also a pretty good twist in this book that I was not expecting. But yeah, ultimately, I just think it didn't stand out too much for me as like a mystery thriller, so that's why I only give it 3 stars. Um, yeah, just because it's like I thought the characters were a little bit 2D. They needed a little bit more oomph to be. They're kind of like stock characters. Like I just wanted a little bit more from them. The next book I read was The Wrong Heart by Jennifer Hartman, and I gave this one 4 stars. I thought this was a really cute read. It was still kind of dark and emotional because it starts with a woman who's really in love and her husband dies. Literally, like 3 pages in, her husband gets killed right in front of her eyes. And so it starts a little bit depressing. Then we find out that his heart gets given to someone else and ends up saving that person. And the wife, the main female character, wants to contact them just to, have that piece of her husband. She tries to kill herself, so she ends up having to go to a group and she meets someone who's really grumpy, but she's kind of drawn to. And yeah, so she has these 2 different men in her life right now. And she's talking to them both. She's kind of intrigued by them both, but she doesn't want to feel like she's betraying Charlie, who's her husband. So it's like a love story, but it's also like a life story, and it's about moving on, and it's about growth, and it's about healing. And so it was a good story. I liked it. The next book I read was The Ex Hex by Erin Sterling. This was like a witchy romance. I feel like it would have hit better if I read it like in October, but it was still super cute and I found myself laughing out loud. I give this one 4 stars. And basically, when a 19-year-old witch gets her heart broken, she hexes her ex. And so when he comes back into town, things go terribly wrong, really wrong. So now she has to unhex him. And so they fight ghosts and they do magic and they have to work together, and it's really fun and funny. I had a good time. The next book I read was The Hades Trials, which I guess should count as 3 books, but I'm going to count it as one because it's just the one on. But The Hades Trials is a trilogy. It's the complete collection by Eliza Rain, and I gave this one 3 stars just because I don't think it stood out too much for me, but like especially between the other Hades Persephone's sorry, between the other Hades and Persephone like romance retellings. So in this one, Persephone is a human living in New York. I'm pretty sure she's a barista and she's studying plants in some college. And Zeus kidnaps her and throws her into the Hades trials, which are a bunch of trials and competitions and like deadly challenges that she needs to compete in. And if she wins or gets the most, like the best score, she gets the opportunity to marry Hades. And she finds out that she used to be married to Hades, and she finds out that um, she used to have powers. She wasn't just a human. Um, she was a goddess, and her mind was wiped. And Hades sent her away for some reason, and she doesn't know why, and she's not supposed to ask why. But she's definitely curious, and as the challenges go on, her memories come back to her a little bit. So, and her powers. So this book was pretty good. It was exciting. It was definitely a slow burn, but I liked it. I thought it was interesting. It just, it didn't stand out too much for me, but to each their own. It was like 600 something pages, and I breezed right through it. So it was an easy read. Next book I read was The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary, and this book was cute. It's about a woman who just got out of a relationship, and so she's looking for somewhere to stay that's cheap because she doesn't have a lot of money. So she ends up sharing a flat or an apartment with a man who works nights. So it's like a 1 bedroom flat, like one bed. And so basically, um, during the day, during this hour to this hour, the flat is his, and he sleeps, he does whatever. And then when she gets off of work, by the time she gets home, the flat is hers from this point to this point. So during the evening, she can sleep or do whatever. And so it's like they switch. Like one works the day shift and one works the night shift. And it just works out perfectly that only one of them is there at the same time. Um, I don't remember how this worked on the weekends, to be honest. But this book went deeper than I thought it would. It's just like 2 people in a really rough spot in life sharing a flat, and the way that they mainly communicate with each other is through like sticky notes on the fridge or around the house. And watching people fall in love that way was just really cute and really fun. So I gave it 4 stars. I didn't think it had 5-star vibes, but I really enjoyed that it wasn't just a love story. Like it also had healing and conflict and like deeper life things. Next book I read, I absolutely freaking adored. So it's Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young, and I gave this 5 stars. And hear me out. I normally do not like the accidental pregnancy trope, but this is a case where if it's written correctly, I will eat it up. This book was so cute. The communication, yes. The respect, yes. The boundaries, yes. The relationship, like, yes. Like, they were soulmates, and you could definitely tell. And they were so cute. I loved this book. The way that they meet was at a Halloween party, and they're both disabled. So she's a pirate because she has like a miniature like malformed hand that she was born with. Um, and he was a pirate as well because he is an amputee. They had to cut off his leg, so he had like a peg leg. And so that's how they met, and the chemistry instantly sparked. So she had a hook hand, he had a peg leg, and they had a one night stand, and accidental pregnancy ensues. But like, You know how some of them, it's like they just should not be together? This couple really should be together. They just respect each other so much. And watching the love blossom out of this like friendship that they had first was really beautiful. And I was crying. It was so cute. I loved that book. The next book I read was The Mister by E.L. James. To be honest, could not tell you what this book was about. I gave it 3 stars because I'm like, I don't know. I think it's a man who falls in love with his maid. But then I'm like, I don't remember. Like, I'm trying to remember. She's like hiding and on the run because she had a fiance back in her native country. I forgot what country it was. And he was really abusive. So she fled her country. And so she's currently trying to hide out. And then this really rich Englishman falls in love with her because she can play the piano really well. And yeah, I don't know. It seems kind of silly to explain it. But yeah, that was The Mister. Not very memorable. The next book was Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. I gave this one 2 stars. I think this is my lowest rated book I've read out of 2025 so far. Um, I just don't know if I'm into like slice of life because this bounced between different point of views, and I found myself getting frustrated in this book because I get it, it's supposed to be like realistic and real narrators and real people have like flaws, but I found myself getting irritated at like the lack of communication between characters and kind of like the pride, and I was like, why don't you just, but then I'm like, I'm outside of it and I have clarity and I have logic, and when you're in it you don't really have those things. So I don't know. It just really wasn't my cup of tea. The last book I read in February was Not in Love by Allie Hazelwood. And at this point, I'm convinced that I will read Allie's like grocery lists and I will fall in love. I gave this one 5 stars just because the communication in this book was also really amazing. The boundaries that were set were respected. There were green flags, like, everything was communicated, everything was talked about, like it was just very healthy. And it went from like uh just a casual hookup to more, and so I found myself getting a little bit frustrated because our female main character refused to form an attachment, like admit that she was emotionally attached, but then at the same time I understand that she's scared to be in that vulnerable spot. And the male main character is kind of just like this golden retriever of a man, and he's so sweet. He was so patient with her, and but the chemistry, oh, they had chemistry, let me tell you. The chemistry was there. But yeah, because she seemed kind of cold a lot of the time, and then I just realized like she was really scared of being vulnerable in front of him emotionally. So at the end of the day, it was a romance. It was spicy. It was good. She was in, I mean, there was also drama. So the plot plotted. But yeah. So in March, I read 7 books. So we're almost done, you guys. Almost done. So the first book I read in March was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I gave this one 4 stars. I really liked this book. However, I think I liked this book so much because I was an English major and I took 3 Shakespeare classes in college. So I think in order to really love the beautiful language and the imagery and the metaphors woven throughout this book, you should have at least a little bit of an understanding of Shakespeare and his works, because he references a lot of Shakespeare's plays, a lot of them. And he kind of takes the lines of Shakespeare's play, or Emma Rio, I'm not sure if it's a he or a she, I'm so sorry. They they take the lines and they kind of weave it into their own language, and it's like so poetic and so captivating, and it's also a murder mystery. It literally starts with this, our main character, he's been in prison for 10 years, and the cop who arrested him, he's like, all right, look, I'm retiring and you're out. So please, off the record, whatever. I just want to know what happened because I don't believe that you did it. And so it's literally our main character going through the whole timeline of what happened, and we find out if he did it or not. And so I loved the pacing. I loved the characterization. I loved how like you felt uncomfortable at times. You felt scared at times. You felt hopeful at times. You felt romantic at like you felt frustrated at times. Like Emma Rio is so good at putting the poetic language in. And the fact that it was a bunch of Shakespeare's lines just woven in, it's just oh, it was a masterpiece. Like I debated giving it 5 stars, but the ending just felt a little bit too depressing for me. Like maybe I am that petty where it's like I don't like the ending that much. So I gave it 4 stars instead of 5. The next book I read was Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross, and this is book 2 of Divine Rivals. And this book was so cute. I believe I gave it 4 stars. Um, I think that the chemistry still had chemistry. I think it was still well written, and I loved the plot, and I loved learning more about like the war that was happening and what happens next because it was kind of like a cliffhanger that book 1 ended on. So I finally got some answers, but I was kind of disappointed by like the final battle scene because it's only a duology. There's only 2 books, there's not another book that's coming out. And so I feel like there was all this hype for I knew this battle was coming between our main characters, and the overarching villain or whatever. And like it was over so quickly, and even like the heroic like moment before, like the encouragement and the pep talk before the final battle. That was also like so quick. And it just felt like there was a whole first book and then 3/4 to 80-90% of the second book was all building up, building up, building up, building up. And then, oh, sorry, that was my ring hitting the desk, but it was over so quick. And I was kind of like disappointed. I was like, that's it? And then it just everything gets wrapped up. It's like beautiful end of the day, woohoo! Like I was like, hmm. So I was just a little bit disappointed. It was still very fun to read, and I still really enjoyed it. That's why I got 4 stars because I still think it's worth the read. It was just a little bit disappointing to me. The next book I read in March was Daydream by Hannah Grace. This was the book 3 in I was gonna say Maple Heels, Maple Hills. Oh, I need to stop the series. I gave this 5 stars just because I really related to Hallie, our main character. I'm not an eldest daughter like she is, but I am a people pleaser. And so a lot of her struggles of like saying no and overworking herself and being overwhelmed with the amount of things she has to do because she's trying to juggle so much because she doesn't want to disappoint anyone. I felt that. I really felt that. And then with Henry, he's neurodivergent. And so I just really enjoyed the respect and the friendship that blossomed between Hallie and Henry, um, because he is different, and I loved that representation and like how she just understood him, and she worked so hard to like make it a point to understand him because he does think differently than the rest of everyone else. And so I thought the friendship and their eventual love was really special. um I don't know. I found it really sweet, and I really like all of Hannah Grace's writing so far. Books 1, 2, and 3. I'm pretty sure they were all 5 stars for me. The next book I read was The Nanny by Alana Ferguson. I gave this one 3 stars just because I found it a little bit unrealistic. Um, I loved so it's a single dad with his daughter, and he hires a nanny to help with his daughter because he's a chef, and he has a very time consuming job, and his daughter, she needs someone around um, and someone to be present because he cannot be present all the time. But he wants someone that he can trust. He hires our female main character, and we find out that she used to do OnlyFans, and he used to be her favorite subscriber or whatever you want to call it on there. And she knows this, but he doesn't. And so it's like tea. But yeah, I just thought the way that the plot and everything developed, it was a little. I think I have a visitor. One second. Hello. Would you like to come in? Hi, what do you have to say? Thank you. Do you want me to bring you up? Okay. Everyone, this is Bobby. Thank you, Bobby. All right, Bobby, back to the original programming. So, I just found this book to be a little bit unrealistic, you know? So, it's like how everything developed. And it was spicy. I mean, I liked the daughter. I thought she was super cute. And I loved the relationship that forms between the nanny, that were female main character, and the daughter. And I mean, there are points where I like laughed out loud and I thought it was like entertaining. It did its job to entertain me, but I just don't think it was like groundbreaking, like 5 star or even 4 star read. You know, it's just solid, middle of the road, solid read. The next book I read was called A Flicker in the Dark by Stacy Willingham. And this book was pretty good. The twist kind of got me, but it didn't. Like, I kind of called it from the beginning, and that's why I only gave it 4 stars instead of 5, because I was between two culprits. So for context, our female main character, when she was a kid, her dad was convicted of murdering, I want to say, I forget how many teenage girls. It was like 4 or 5. And so this is now 20 years later. It's the 20-year anniversary, and the disappearances and murders have begun again. Teenage girls again. But her dad is still in prison. So this is either a copycat or someone paying homage or whatever. And it's interesting because it's the 20-year anniversary. So our female main character is obviously very, what's the word, paranoid. You know, she doesn't know who to trust. And so she starts spiraling and doing her own investigations. And, you know, she doesn't know who she can trust in her life. So I was between two different people. And I was actually correct about one of them. One of the people I was suspicious of ended up being the person that I thought it was. So, yeah. That's why it only got 4 stars. But I still thought it was a really, really good story. Um, so yeah. Anyways, you should read it. I liked it. I read it pretty quickly because it's like you just want to know what the frick is happening and what the frick is going on. So you're like, come on, turn the pages. So yeah. Next book I read was Beartown by Frederick Bachman or Backman. And I gave this one 3 stars. I think this was beautifully told. I loved how it like was told from like God's perspective, you know? It was like a third, like God omniscience, you know? So it's like this presence hovering over the town. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to hone in on this person and their thoughts. So it's about this person and what they're going through. And then it swivels over to this person. And so it's jumping around between all these people. So it's whether it's a parent or a child or a hockey player or whatever, it's jumping back and forth between all these people in this town. And they're all going through their own stuff. You know, they are all having their own struggles and they all have their own problems. I really liked this book because of the characterization. Because plot wise, one thing that's really big happens, you know, and I can't tell you, otherwise it'd be a spoiler. Um, Something big happens in this very small town that cares about nothing but hockey. Hockey is their one thing. but the characterization that happens is so amazing because I think it's very character driven. And I love character driven books just because we really get to see arcs, we get to see change, we get to see growth happen, and that really happens here. Um, I got angered by this book a lot based on a majority of the reactions to what happens in this book. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. Um, it angered me a lot. That's why I only gave it 3 stars, just because I got really pissed off. And maybe I should rate it higher because I felt so emotionally passionate about this book. But for now, I'm going to sit with the 3 stars. And then, last but not least, my last read of March was Pen Pal by J.T. Jasinger. I rated this 3 stars. It was middle of the road. It was spicy. I could turn my brain off. I read it in the day. I just, it was a romance. It did its job of like getting me out of a really bad slump. Because I think for the month of March, I think I want to say at least 1.5 to 2 weeks of it, I didn't touch a book at all. At all. I just couldn't focus, and I've been in like the worst slump of my life. So it got me out of my slump. I read that book in a day. So that's why I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it a 3 stars because it did its job. But there was a twist that I was like, that's kind of like, I wasn't expecting it. So I guess it's a good twist. But I was just kind of like, really? Like, kind of mid. So yeah. Anyways, that concludes my quarter 1 reading wrap up of 2025. Let me know if you read any of these books and if you agree or disagree with any of my ratings or reviews. Let me know if you think there's a book that should be on my next quarter wrap up. I know I still need to read my my 25 of 2025 reads. I don't know if any of these books are on there, but I'll have to go through. Anyways, I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great week. I hope you have a great month. I will see you again when I see you again. Have good reads. Like, subscribe, comment down below, right?